Here I have the stitches that I picked up for the sleeve of my Courchevel Cardi, and I still have my waste yarn in, and I went ahead and worked 2 rounds. I want to show you, for those who don't know, how to work a magic loop. So I have my stitch marker to mark the beginning and end of my round, and all my stitches on the cable. So to work the magic loop, sort of find the halfway point. It doesn't have to be exact, and poke out a bit of cable there in the middle, and then pull out a nice loop. And I'm going to push the stitches that are going to be worked first onto the left hand needle there. So we've got a loop halfway around our knitting and another loop at the beginning. So actually the magic loop is a loop of knitting worked in 2 parts, and you should have 2 cable loops, one at the beginning, one halfway around. So I like to push my stitches onto the needle there to help it work easier. So here we go with the first stitch of the round. So you just knit normally, making sure that this stitch on the cable isn't too far away, then that would cause a ladder if I was just to make that slack. So I sort of hold that quite close. Not too tight, otherwise you won't get this stitch onto the needle later. So just quite close, and then you knit. So I'm on my 3rd round of my sleeve, which I'm marking off on my pattern here, so I don't lose count of how many rounds I've done. So just knit normally, however you knit. I know I'm old-fashioned, I knit the English way, or throwing. It's not as fast as continental. I can actually knit continental. I just prefer to knit this way, even though it is a little bit slower. And I'm not actually going at full speed at the moment because I want you to see what I'm doing. So here I've knitted the first half, and then I like to flip the whole thing clockwise. So needle points to the right, and then I'm going to push in this needle that's now at the front, the stitches that are going to be worked. I'm going to move my knitting so that it's not so scrunched up. There we go. So I push those onto the needle. If they're not going easily onto the needle, then I pull out the back needle, making my loop there. And we know we're only halfway around because our marker is locked in there. It can't escape. So we know we're only halfway round working the magic loop when the stitch marker is locked in on this loop of cable. It's not able to fall off this one. So once those back stitches, the ones that are just worked, are on the cable, then I can slide, holding on to this point so I don't slide them all the way off, the second half of the stitches onto this now front needle. So I have my loop here with my stitch marker on, and my other loop here beginning to knit, and then again nice and close, that stitch, the last stitch worked to the next stitch that's going to be worked, and just carry on knitting. And then you just do that for every round that you need to knit in a magic loop. It's a lot easier than people think. I magic loop almost everything. I work almost exclusively on circular needles. I much prefer working the magic loop to changing needle lengths or working with double pointed needles, although I will be doing some work on double pointed needles just to show those who want to use them how to do so. So here's the second half of the sleeve, almost worked, and 3, 2, 1, and then as before I'm going to flip clockwise so that the stitch that I've just worked is pointing towards the right, and slide. See, my stitch marker now is loose and can escape, then that means that I have completed a round. So before that does escape, I'm going to pop it on to what is now the back needle, pull out that back needle and push those stitches onto the front needle. So here we are, loop of cable halfway around with no stitch marker, loop of cable at the beginning with a stitch marker, onto the back because we're going to knit, pull that somewhat tightly and then carry on.